All right, yeah. What's good? Digital Crates, repping for HipHopSince1987.com. And we back part two with Ronnie Riggles. It's release day, man. Congrats. You got a new
Thank you.
album. New album, The Cost of Living, online now.
Say it a lot. The cost of living, maybe the cost
Hey,
of.
what's so crazy is just in the hour since we did part one of the interview, it's been going up. A lot of people are sharing. A lot of people are reposting.
Yeah.
How important is it for you as an artist to get that validation from the streets? Is it important, or is it something that you don't even really care?
I mean, I think every artist to some degree. I don't think validation is what I look for, but I'm glad to have support from my community that I put. At the end of the day, validation would mean I need y'all to tell me this joint. I know it's I don't need, you know what I mean? But it is nice to have people that organic reaction to the album the day of drop. That feels good for sure. Like that's you know what I mean? It's not something any artist needs, but it's probably definitely something you want as an artist, and me specifically.
We've dropped music before, like as co-producers, you as the artist, me as the producer. We dropped a couple mini projects before. We had the antagonist, we had the protagonist, two little EPs that were like a warm-up for this album, and for the Drop a Bag Drive. What about today? What about this album feels different than those projects, if anything?
We're always raw in the raw stage of creating, but we both are the type of people that if we think it's a record, we'll put time into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not to say the EP Jones wasn't records, they was bangers. Yeah. And we put time into them. I just think, I know I got a lot better as a recording artist since those, so you can hear that in Cost of Living. You know what I mean? Breath control, delivery, melodies, cadences, all that got better. And I think we really expanded on production. Like we really went in on every single one of these beats. Really like.
Yeah. If it's one thing, if it's one thing I would want people to understand is definitely like the care that we treated these records with. It wasn't just like I threw on a beat, you rapped. Like a lot of these records were created. We like kind of, I didn't write the lyrics, but like we wrote the music. Like the overall production of this we did together. That's definitely special compared to a lot of other records I've worked on. A lot of people, they'll just be like, I don't care, just send any beat. You know what I mean? But you always seem to have a direction on how you want the beats to sound from scratch, That
is the difference. Yeah, that's definitely. And not the EPs had direction, but they just wasn't album cuts. You know what I mean? That's just the reality. Yeah. Sometimes it's not an album cut.
Yeah.
It's a good joint.
Or maybe they are. They just don't fit the narrative of that particular. Because I almost feel like we could double back. Like we could almost do like a best of Ronnie and Crates project and take a lot of those non-album cuts and put them together into some sort of compilation. Just do something.
No, I agree. Best of would be crazy because we've dropped quite a few records, man. We have a lot in the tuck. And that's it. We always keep growing. That's the real difference. Even after we finished Cost of Living, when I came down Florida, we made 12 songs and like.
Yeah, we got a whole other project, and what's funny is like I wanted to stay, even though we started cooking, I kind of wanted to stay on this Cost of Living type time, and I've been really going back and forth, refining, smoothing the records out, just kind of like chipping away at the sculpture until it was perfect. You know what I mean? From an outsider's perspective, it's not all the way perfect. And some of the imperfections make it what it is. Like I can't remember what song it is on the album, but there's one song. I don't know if it was somebody in the room who was talking while you were recording, or whether it was you like saying something on an ad lib that didn't necessarily fit. I forget what song it is, but there's something that catches my ear every time I listen to it. And there was like 2 or 3 times where I wanted to like zap it out in the mix and like clean it up. And then I had to fight and be like, if I take this, whatever imperfection it is, out of the mix, it'll kind of make it less human and not as, you know what I mean? It'll be like too perfect. And it's like, we have to, as a producer, some of those human moments are what make the music. We were talking about Drop a Bag Drive, where you drop 30 songs in 30 days. Think about the song Incapacitated.
Incapacitated, yeah.
But think about how that started. That started off with a dog toy.
Dog toy that got caught in another song's recording.
Yeah, we literally took that sound and made a whole other beat and a whole other song out. So it's like our imperfections are what makes us human. You know what I mean? Like if we were perfect in everything we did, it'd be like unrealistic. You know what I mean? Like, and you know, like I've been starting to get more into art, into painting, but like very abstract, like literally just throwing color on a canvas to represent how I feel. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what we were doing when we were cooking up. And to me, what makes this album so special is we were literally throwing paint on a canvas and using the lyrical content to like gather the pieces of the puzzle together. That's really different than Drop a Bag Drive. I do want to talk a little bit more about Drop a Bag Drive because that was really a special moment. I feel like in Philly rap history, even if nobody knows about it. I mean, they'll know now from watching the interview. But literally doing 30 songs in 30 days, 30 performances, along with the charity drive to raise awareness for homelessness and care and hygiene. It's just, that's something that like somebody could write, you know, even make a movie about one day. Like somebody could do the Drop a Bag Drive independent film. And you feel me? It's like I could see a filmmaker looking for a narrative and hearing about this project and being like, wow, this is a story that needs to be told in a different way. But I want to kind of dive a little bit into a couple of the particulars, mainly the features, right? As an artist, I feel it's very important not only to do features, but to get people featured on your track. Collaboration to me is the key to monetization. The more people in a collective fan base that you put together will help move a project. What do I want to talk about? I want to talk about the song Shooting Stars, right? I want to talk about your relationship with Faye De La Soul. How did y'all link up? How did y'all start making music together? And what about the records you do with him? Like, what I feel like the records you do with him are special. Like, maybe you could talk about your collaborations with Faye.
Me and Faye are close. Faye De La Soul, he's one of the, like, I don't revere many pens, man. I don't revere many pens, but he's one of the pens. I know every time I gotta come. And even still, he's just such a natural presence on the record. Yeah. And Josh has always been like, I met him as Josh before Faye. Like we were 10 and we went to summer camp together.
Oh wow, okay.
And then years later, we ended up going to the same high school. Like it was like I'm like a couple years older than him. So we graduated from the same high school. I was 2 years ahead of him. They always dressed like real fly, like 80s style freshmen since he was like 13. Just real, always had this, like I always, in that sense, looked up to him just doing his own thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But when I graduated a couple years ahead, we started doing music separately, honestly. But we both caught followings up. You know what I mean? And then it was like, oh, you making music, bro? It makes sense. It's only right. And then he was on Nebula, actually, with a Nimbus. So that's one of my favorite records off of Nebula. He was on there. And like you said, it's just special. When we make a track, it's just like, because we have a chemistry, we was on high school ball team together. We like brothers, like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, that's where it stems from. And that's who actually was we would say is a co-founder of the Cooligans with me, the collective community, because that's who.
And what's crazy is that Shooting Stars record, out of the 30 records of that month, that John really stands out. You know what I mean? That's
a full song. Like Fade was honestly a little mad. He didn't want to drop it. He was like, man, this is a John, bro. He was like, and I'm like, look, bro, I understand now looking back, but it's hey man, we can always redrop something, but that's a hell of a record. He went absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, even just doing a video for it, doubling back on a video keeps it relevant. I want to talk about this other joint right here, Focus with Spiff.
Oh,
maybe you could talk about that relationship and how y'all kind of came together making music.
Spiffy, another guy I looked up to. Spiff, I wouldn't have started rapping without Spiffy. He was one of the first guys I saw be a dedicated rapper early on. Like when I started in 2014, Spiffy had already opened for big names at the TLA. Like Spiffy was a rapper. Like Spiffy already already has respect in the community as an artist. You know what I mean? So linking up with him every time, he was one of those guys to be like, oh no, Ronnie, you need to do this shit. You need to keep growing this shit. Always believed in me, never hated, you know what I mean? So when he slid to the studio that one time, similar chemistry, right? It was just like, oh yeah, it was like we slid. You know what I mean? Damn, Focus. I love Focus, man.
Yeah.
Oh, we got so many songs
That's,
on Drop Back.
that's another one that needs a video. Double back with a video and keep it relevant. You know what I mean? I love the song Problems. That John is crazy. But let's talk about this crazy feature, Zonin. You got Nick Hansen on the track. Nick, I've always respected his grind is a little different in terms of like East Coast music, Philly, Brooklyn. He does a lot of international records, like kind of, you know what I mean? Sings and raps in different languages. I mean, he's really different. You know, like talk about standing out. He stands out. But on this record, you brought the record and the way you wrote it, it brought something totally different out of him.
It did. I like that because Nick knows, and we hung out. Nick, we've always inspired each other like that creatively. And he knows, I like to spit. You know what I mean? He knows I like to really rap. So and that's how I met Nick. If you look back in the archives, they'll look back there. That was Nick Hansen before the singing. He was a spitter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How to rap. That was the first. Damn, we was like 13 when Nick's been a writer. We was like 13. He was dropping stuff. So he's been dropping for so long. I always looked up to Nick. So when we get together now, it's like, oh yeah, let's make a hit. It's like we pulled the best. He was in his bag on that one, man. He was speaking in Spanish, speaking in tongues. He was going crazy on that record, man.
And that's another one. Like y'all need to go up top, go to Brooklyn, get a video for that, John. Like go into his world a little bit to film that video because he ran that record. That John crazy. But yo, let's get into something deeper, right? This record, Requiem for a Dream. For people that don't know, Requiem for a Dream is the name of probably one of the most intense psychedelic movies that's ever been made, like ever. You know, Requiem is a word that has always been associated with deep, intense music and art. Speaking of art, that was a great transition. You got one of the premier Philadelphia art personalities who was doing creative direction, doing artwork for you, all of a sudden decided, yo, I'm about to get on the microphone. You know what I mean? Right. So shout out to Jordan Plain. Yep. He quickly became one of my favorite music artists. Was already one of my favorite artists. You know what I mean? But wow, like he started gassing. Maybe you could tell the people watching a little bit more behind the scenes. Yeah. What went on in those sessions that made Jordan want to get on the microphone? Like, how did this happen?
It was so Jordan, like you said, he did Nebula roll out. So we were good friends by this point. You know what I mean? We were close friends. We hanging out last summer. We was hanging out every day. There was nothing much else to do but come over, yo, bro, drink beers. And I was on my own depressed bag, quarantine, breakups, all that shit. Heart, you know what I mean? What a personal shit. And then JP was there as a homie because I'm drinking every day after that. I'm like, man, fighting cops, so I'm like, I'm out of it, man. I tapped out because it was just like, it was physically a lot, mentally a lot. I tapped out. And then one day he was like, nah, bro, you got to start recording again. Like, you got your whole setup upstairs. You just not using it. You serious? You know what I mean? You got your whole setup. And he kind of got me back that July when we start cooking up and I start sending you my first little demos back and really start trying to record myself. I was like peeking every track and shit. Like, but it was art and him seeing me live really getting back into what I loved. It was like, all right. And he's a poet already, so he's a writer too. So it was like, yeah. And he was like, let's go rap. And I was like, yeah, bro, you might as well hop on the track. He was like, let's go rap. And I was like, yeah, bro, hop on the track. And he hopped on. That was the first song we ever did.
That's why I'm bringing it up because
the first song we ever did.
But out the gate, like that's another record that y'all could probably double back on the video tip. Like that's a special record. And I tend to, in our work, I tend to keep it pretty hip hop, keep it pretty plain. I don't use a lot of effects, a lot of plugins or whatever. I like the vocals and the track to kind of just marry each other and not do too much. But I was like, damn, we got Jordan on the track. Like, I'm gonna throw some crazy delays on here. You know, I'm gonna get into the art part of it too. So like, y'all really inspired me in those sessions to get back creative. And mind you, I had the studio shut down for like 6 months, 7 months.
I was just talking about it last night, bro. I was telling the podcast, I didn't see crates for months.
Yeah, but I was in the studio every day cooking up beats. So that I knew that when the artists could start getting back to work, I cooked up almost 2,000 beats in 2020. You know what I mean? Like I really went in to make sure that I had the proper canvas for the artists that were coming in to paint on. You know what I'm saying? And think about like all those months when the studio was shut down, and think about how we treat the pandemic now. It's like, I'm wondering if we really needed to do all that. You know what I mean? Like if we, maybe for a month or two, but I mean, that was like a long time where we were like, and even Philly is just now opening back up this month in June of 2021. So think about it, it's been about like almost a year and a half since we first heard the words COVID or coronavirus. You know what I mean? So this I think a lot of people went through what we went through with that, being locked in the room, being depressed, drinking every day, whatever. But so many of us positively have come out of it and are now starting to put a lot of like work out into the world. I want to talk about a couple more songs off this 30-day, incredible month-long project.
I appreciate you doubling back though, because I try not to revisit it, and you're right, I should, like, because I just don't. I get discouraged of stuff. Like I'm glad at what it got, and I always just so self-critical. I always want more, so I'm like,
What's funny is if you look at the artwork too, through the course of that month, you could actually visually see almost a negative mindset turning into positive. So like, I think it was the very last record that we put out in those 30 days was Glowing with Nair. And you're like smiling like a maniacal smile on the cover. But I think that represents artistically like all of us as a unit in the Philadelphia art and entertainment and music scene coming out of this frown and making it into a big smile. You know what I mean? So maybe just real quick before we get into some more stuff, talk about how y'all linked up and how that Glowing record came together, because that's one of them ones, man.
I know I fuck with Glowing, man. Nah, came heavy on that John, like the hook. How did I link up with Nah? I threw another rapper I know on this through Quan, the homie Quan, true spitter out of Philly. They both work hard, man. They couple young guys, and we didn't know each other through music stuff, honestly, till later around that session. Like I don't even think we planned to have that record. I think I just came to the studio that day. Nair had already had a session with you, but I think after we found out each other did music, he seemed proper back. So we worked so much and was like, I'm trying.
Yeah, because I did a dollar beat sale during quarantine. That's actually how me and him linked up. I think he just saw somebody repost that I was selling dollar beats, and he hit me up and bought some beats off me, supported, because I didn't know what to do as an artist. I was like, yo, everybody's about to be broke for like a little stretch. I was like, so what can I do to keep the love going? You know what I mean? And that dollar beat sale, like, yo, it's been, like I said, almost 18 months, and people are still hitting me up on the daily, like, yo, you still got dollar beats? You still got dollar beats? And even though I shouldn't be giving away the work on that low like that, I'm still doing it because it's building relationships, not just with myself and other artists, but other artists with each other. Like you said, it's like a community building exercise. You know what I mean? We talked about during quarantine, you started engineering, like recording yourself, doing demos, and all the demos literally have turned into songs, or they're on their way to becoming actual songs in the next year. Just maybe talk about that process. Talk about, what software you use and maybe talk about what a typical at-home studio session is like for Ronnie Riggles.
At home is different than I had to learn. I gained a new respect for the engineers. I already respected y'all, but really doing that, recording myself, leveling, mixing my vocals, it's different, man. So it takes some time. Obviously, I finally got the 2 pairs of headphones in the crib. I'm really on my engineer shit. I'm like, all right, I'm engineering y'all now. Cause before I was just, they would have the headphones on them. You good?
Oh,
You good?
wow. So that explains, you know what I mean, a little bit of some of the technical stuff that you were going through at first, I guess. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I wasn't able to really mix them till I got in the speaker, and I didn't really know how to mix them. So it was just like I was all trial and error. But over time, it's like, all right, well, I got 2 pairs of headphones. Let me just listen while you do this level. But usually it's just right here, man. Set up in this room we in. Like I sit, not move 2 feet over. Here's the mic. The mic is right here. You know what I mean? I don't want to move it, so set up. But usually sitting down. Which that's different. That's the only difference is at home I gotta record sitting. To record myself, I have to sit down. Like it's hard to, you know what I mean? Or maybe
you gotta get one of those standing desks. You know, like those desks that rise up. Like
I need a tall one of those. So that's like a studio goal. But that's the difference. You know what I mean? Obviously, but I can't honestly work with every engineer. If it's an experienced engineer, and nobody I really do, we have a chemistry like ours is like, well, we're producing, engineering together at the same time. It's like, I don't, you know what I mean? So if it's not like clicking like that, I'd rather record myself, you know what I mean? And figure the rest out later and, you know what I mean, demo it up.
Yeah, like definitely shout out to all the artists that got into engineering over quarantine. I know it's a whole bunch, even like celebrities. Like I know a lot of big famous artists that kind of lowered their level. They had to. The hand is forced. So I know a lot of people that just started recording themselves and then sending the stuff out for mixing, and it's a whole new process. You know what I mean? And even just the process of bouncing out stems. You know what I mean? And sending them, and it's a process. And we've been sending files back and forth a lot since I've been down here in Florida. And it's like, I'm not saying that it's as good as collaborating with somebody in person, but I think it's good for all artists to like get their hand in the pot and stir. You know what I mean? Like there's something to be said for that. And also now it's like almost like paying it forward. Like I feel like now you have the freedom to do more features and invite more people to the microphone because you have the control. And I don't know. I mean, tell the people, do you feel more empowered as an artist? Like, are you happy that you got into the engineering thing?
Yeah, I do. I feel like I feel definitely more freedom, like you, because it's all, if you can't record yourself, then it's always like, all right, I gotta buy studio time.
Yeah.
In my studio, in my engineer here. In our case, we can still cook up. We've been cooking up for months.
Yeah.
You live in different states entirely. You know what I mean? And that's the chemistry we had back and forth. So now it's like, it's definitely, because I would have been, I've been asked out. Basically, if I couldn't record myself, because you got to find, or just, you got to pay that price if you want to, you know what I mean? Find a chemistry, you know what I mean? Like we like Obi Records, those young guys over there, they're a talented crew too. You know what I mean? But they had Milk Boy. You know what I mean? So these are the things that come with being an indie artist, right? As opposed to having label money where Sony had $1 million. I don't, 80 an hour, fuck it, I'll give you 100.
I could never afford studio time at Milk Boy, so I ended up getting a job there. I ended up working as an engineer at Milk Boy, and I was able to finesse, you know what I mean? Because I was in the mix. It is what it is. I'll never forget when they gave me the key too. I was like, I don't even need my apartment no more. Like literally, like we moved into the studio, like literally, like, and I think it's something to be said for creating in a comfortable place. So like if you're recording in your own studio or at your crib in a studio room or even in your bedroom, I think it's something to be said for being comfortable. I've seen a lot of artists knock out incredible demos at the crib, and then you go to the big boy studio and they freeze up.
And that's but see, I like to be prepared for both. You know what I mean? That's the thing. I like to be ready for both scenarios. So this was, I think I got used to that first, and then this was, now it's like, all right, I feel very comfortable.
So talk about like a typical studio session. Like, what do you do to get comfortable? How many songs do you typically record? Like, what's the process like?
It depends on if it's a solo or a group session. Like solo sessions, I can obviously just get more done because it's just like I'm just, you know what I mean, collaborating. But I like collaborating because sometimes that flows, but it's just usually more interaction, more people's ideas. So it takes more time to do like a bigger record.
I don't know. I know you do both. Like I know you write, but then sometimes like you'll write to the beat, like right when you hear it. For you, what do you think is the best creative process?
music is feeling, right? It's like I never getting like, that's why it's hard for me to type beat it, because it's like, all right, what am I feeling? And sometimes it's a miss, right? It's like, this what I'm feeling. Am I sending out a wave that makes other people feel that that thing that you feel with music that's just like, all right, when you hear some shit you love, it's like, all right.
And I understand that about an artist. I still get frustrated, but I get it. Like, there have been times with you especially, and a lot of artists, where I might put on like a super hot beat, and then the artist is like, nah, like, I'm cool on that one. And I'm like, yo, this is a hit. Like, whatever you do to this is gonna be a hit. But I get now that if you're not feeling it, you can't just force it. You know what I'm saying? It won't be right.
Because it's like, you can go on. I can give you a 16 for any beat you want. It's like, is it time efficient? Like, are we going like it? Like, that's the main thing. Like, feels in that moment. And that's the thing. I can hear that. That's the crazy thing about it. Like, I can hear that same beat one day, be like, nah, and the very next day be like,
bro, I've seen you do that in 20 minutes. I've seen you get through half a verse and then be like, nah, I lost the flow. I'm not feeling it no more. Like, what's next?
Bro. Yeah. It's a feel. Yeah, bro.
It really is. And I'm that way with making beats and with songwriting as well. Like, it's got to be from here. It can't be from here. It can't be off the dome. It's got to be. And that's why I respect your craft as a writer, because I feel like a lot of these punch-in rappers that just go freestyle, like it's off the dome, and there's not much intent and feeling in that. You know what I mean? Like, the moment off the top of your head will take you lyrically wherever your mind wants to go. But if you're not putting your heart and your soul into it, it's just not, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? We just talked about a lot of features, and I hate to ask this question because I don't ever do this. When people ask me like, yo, what's the favorite artist you work with, or name some of the artists you work with, it's hard for me because I love every artist I work with, and I learn from every artist I work with. But out of everyone that you've kind of worked with, who's like some of your favorite collaborators overall?
I gotta say the Cooligans. I can't even lie about that. Like, the energy around that, the genuine, like, just because I've done group things before, you know what I mean? Not to say anything failed or nothing, like, well, I'm still friends with that, but most of the people I work with in the past, I don't. So I love what I've learned and taken away from all the people I've collaborated with in the past. But as far as like a genuine community vibe that puts the art first, the best art first, you know what I mean? Like, there's never a question. And Nick is always going to be one of my favorites. You know what I mean? Because he's just, but Fade, obviously, and Fade is a Cooligan, so like, and obviously, it goes well. I said that Crates. This was Crates. I mean, I don't have to, like, that's for me to really dive into it. Like, I feel like weird when people say legit, like, not to be spicy, but like 40 to Drake. That's how I feel when I make this. Like, wow, this chemistry is crazy. Like, and like, I know it's like that with Crates because other people come in the studio and see us work and get fucking wild, and they're like, and I'm like, is every session not like this? And it's really just how we bounce off, because it's not. Most people, it's like, no, we just bounce off each other. But yours goes without saying, because you produce a very major amount of Cooligans beats and also a lot of my stuff.
But I look at it, I don't look at our relationship in the studio as I'm producing you. I look at it as we're collaborating. You know what I mean? Like, we're equals. You know what I mean? Like, no doubt about it. And I like to put the ball in the artist's court a lot. Like, even at the behest of my intentions or how I'm feeling. You know what I mean? Like, I might go to the studio and want to make this type of song, and the artist might want to make that type of song. And I'm always like, okay, let's do that, because that might lead to a real feeling, not something that's forced, you know? Like, for people that have been watching this video, they're probably like, well, what's the Cooligans? We're going to get into that. Don't worry. I want to talk about something else that's been going on in hip hop, and try to get to cost of living first, right? Hip hop has always been, I wouldn't say based on, but a very integral part of hip hop has been sampling. And in this modern era, we have people who make their own samples. I guess they're called like loop makers. There's loops, you know what I mean? That maybe sound like samples. And then there's like producers like me who play a lot of different instruments. So like, when I make a beat, I might have a sample of my own guitar, a sample of a bass, a sample of a synthesizer, maybe even off my iPad that I've sampled, and then brought into the session. So it's like sampling is a big thing, right? Technology has made it so that producers and beat makers, because there is a difference, producers and beat makers can layer their samples easily with a lot of drums and additional percussion. And you probably see where I'm going with this, because now we're at a time in hip hop where there's kind of like a minimalist lo-fi thing going on. Shout out to Griselda and Alchemist, Derringer, some of these, you know, raw hip hop producers who aren't layering their beats. It's literally just the sample, just the loop, no drums, no additional percussion. It's literally just the sample. And you're the first artist I've worked with in a while that a few times you'd be like, no drums. Just let that joint ride. Just let that joint ride. And a good portion of our catalog is those type of sample beats, minimalist, lo-fi, no drums. It almost hurts me to do it because I'll be hearing, I might get like a sample or a loop going, or I might have a piano part going, and I'm like, I hear the whole grandiose production. I hear the orchestra, I hear the choir, I hear all this stuff. And then you've helped me to kind of realize that not all the time do we need all that. And one of the best songs that we put out, I think, leading up to what we're talking about today, Cost of Living, is a song called The Smooth.
Oh.
And I particularly remember that session. I had some drums going, and you were like, nah, stop. I'm good. Like, just chill. Give me 20 minutes. Let me write. And I don't know where as a young artist that came from, like your affinity for those type of beats, but maybe you could talk about like what it is about those stripped down kind of sample beats that bring out the best lyricist in you.
It's just as a true, like, because people shy away from being a rapper, right? And like, yes, my sound is definitely alternative hip hop, but at the true core of it, I'm from Philly, so it's like, just know, like, that type of beat for a rap is just beautiful. Like, it's to the soul. It's like, oh, let me get off on this.
Yeah,
I'll go 2 minutes straight on this. Like, I'll go 4 minutes straight on this. Yeah. Like, it's just like, yo, this is, you know what I mean? And but you know what I mean? You show me there's accents, right, where drums can be placed. That it's like, but I also like when it's open to me, it's like you feel, it's like you're breathing in the damn track. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that's why it's like, that's like it goes like in marriage, like you said, you know what I mean? Sometimes with my voice is specifically, you know what I mean? That's really what it is. I think after learning my voice at the years of recording, it's like, all right, I think my voice sounds good like this. Because my voice can be harsh at times. So my voice kind of clashes with drums at times when it's like, and I'm like competing over them with volume. But if I'm able to like catch a tone and the flow is there, and the lyrics when you go, you know what I mean? And the smooth is one of those that was just like, oh yeah. Yeah, that shit was amazing, man. I think played it for somebody once. They're like, you just rap for 2 minutes straight. I'm like, yeah, yo, that shit's crazy.
Yeah, that's another one we could double back on a video and maybe even a remix. I could see us like adding some drums and a feature, like putting somebody, you know what I mean, doing a smooth remix. Like I could see that maybe on the Cost of Living bonus edition, you know what I mean? Like, because I know like when we originally did the track list for Cost of Living, that was at the very end. And it kind of like, I feel like that's already earmarked as like a bonus edition, bonus track. So we'll have to double back on that. Another one of my favorite joints that we did on this lead up was Summerback featuring Irk. Maybe you could talk about how you and Irk linked up, how that song came together, the video, y'all are literally in the snow talking about bringing summer back. I mean, that's a special record to me. That's a real Philly crazy collab that like, I feel like if y'all jumped on stage like at the next like Hashland party and did that song, people would go crazy. You feel me? Like, so maybe you could talk about that collab, how y'all linked up, how that happened.
Irk is gang. We've been following each other for years now. And then I think after Big Bougie's Neighborhood, we started, or even no, before, because we was making music, we made a record that went on Big Bougie's Neighborhood. That was on Big Bougie's Neighborhood. Your beat. Yeah. Seasons. Yeah. So that was wow, I'm different for the right reasons. So that we just met through mutual friends, I believe it was. Like share fandom, Irk rap their ass off. You know what I mean? they can rap their ass off, and our voices go real good together. From the first season, our voices just like it was like okay, like you're the perfect quiet tone, but it's like it hits loud, like but it's like Kirk does this thing where he talk quiet, but it's powerful, like it's just like you know what I mean, and my voice is a little heavier, harsher, just like so. When we made Summer back, Irk is another one. Pen, man, that if it's only the cool, like the pen is just like, I'm like, oh shit. Like people call me a fast writer. I'm like, Irk will look at you like, and you see him right on the spot, like
done.
Oh, I got something for this, Ronnie. I said, damn, I didn't even play the fucking beat. Irk, I'm like, we didn't even, I'm like, feeling like I'm
like you said, it's like a feeling. You know what I mean? It's something in the water in Philly. I always say, like, there's brilliant rap lyrics literally in the water of Philadelphia. Like you drink tap water, you got the lyrics. Like you know what I mean? It's something about Philly. That's a special record. I want to attach that to this interview, to this article when I post it. I feel like that's a song that like kind of represents the end of that quarantine season and everybody kind of going from a negative attitude back to a positive attitude. And you can see in the video, y'all throwing snowballs at each other. Y'all was having a good time. You know what I mean? Like straight up, but in the snow, in the freezing cold snow, having a good old time. You know what I mean? Celebrating culture and music. I mean, that's a really, really dope record. Yeah. Then I guess Big Bougie Neighborhood was like hitting. And then I dropped the Rising Sun project that had a bunch of features from you on there. And all that. I mean, talk about a lead up to an album. I mean, that was literally like
we was dropping. That was a goal.
From the EPs all the way through all that to Cost of Living.
Yeah, I didn't think about it till you broke it down just in this interview, honestly. But I didn't think about it because we was doing it. It was like,
and plus the Cooligans, which we're going to talk about next. But like, yo, this was for an artist, one of the, especially for an indie local artist in a city like Philadelphia, this was one hell of a lead up. You know what I mean? Again, I think what makes this album so special is that everything you've done in the past year and a half, you kept talking about the album's coming. Even before we started working on the album, it was like, the album's coming. But you weren't capping because it was something that it was on your mind. Like you were thinking about probably concepts, probably already lyrics. Was there any moment in that whole lead up where you were like, okay, it's over. The lead up, this is time. Like the album is coming out. Like, was there any moment like that?
It kept changing. Like, because, I never knew stuff would happen. So in November, that was the first point. And I'm like, honestly, we got hits. I'm collabing with XYZ artists. We got hits. I'm a roll. And we was talking about strategies. So at that point, it was like, let me shoot a shot. She can get a feature. Yeah. Boldy James, so Griselda hits me back. Old Sound and Nas label. Sound and Mass Appeal too. Boldy James, look him up. And so I'm like, oh, well, this is on the goals list, 2020. The goals are in chalk. I was like, 14, and that was crazy. Like I'm down here in Florida. I've been in Florida for 3 days. And you sent the vocals over, the moving truck with all our furniture and like didn't even show up yet. Like I sat on the floor and mixed that record in headphones because I didn't even have a table or a desk yet. I was literally in the bando. And I feel like that was a moment too where I knew I was like, wow, I'm in the bando in Florida, mixing down a record with Ronnie, Jordan playing and Boldy James over a beat. That now that people can log on and hear this, it's not a typical beat. It's like a beat that I'm like happy that I made. It's like if another producer made that beat, I'd be like, damn, I wish I made that song. You know what I mean? Easy beat, bro. And that's why he picked it. I was shocked that he picked it because it's not his. I listened to Boldy, so I wouldn't have thought that he would have picked it or the pack we sent. You know what I mean? But it's a hit. That was a finished record. That was already done, and he picked that one because Jordan laid that hook. Verse, that beat and cohesion was just like, so right there I'm thinking, all right, I'm done. But then I remember you dropped a line, a little more time passed, you're like, yo, bro, we might be able to get a line. I'm like, at first I'm like, I don't
know what's funny? I know a couple people that have been waiting in line to get features from Raekwon and also Jim Jones, I know has been real popular with features this past year. and you got it done where a lot of people couldn't get it done. You got it done. You know what I mean? And that record with Raekwon, and also the record with Boldy, right? Kind of like going back to what we were talking about. Both those records are those like sample based, simple hip hop records.
Yep.
Especially the Raekwon John, there's no drums. That's one of those just sample based Johns. But the Boldy one is so special because last year something special happened. I mean, we've been stuck in this 808 trap music drum patterns for like, I don't know, 10 years, 12 years, ever since Lex Luger and Rick Ross linked together. The drums really haven't changed since like 2009, 2010. Like it's been 10 years of like the same hi-hats, the same snare, the same clap. Like, and then when the UK grime, Brooklyn drill movement took off last year, it gave producers and artists an opportunity to switch the flow, switch the groove. So like I've been experimenting with dropping those grime and drill drums on all different kinds of melodies. And I definitely agree with you. Like when that record with Boldy James came together, that was definitely a moment like, wow, like this album is very close to being done now. Even after it was done in terms of like the recording stage, we didn't rush anything in terms of mixing. Like I think every song on this album was mixed at least 3, 4, 5, maybe 6, maybe 7. I think the Boldy James song I mixed 9 times on some Kanye vibes. Like I just kept going in because you had such a lead up and a rollout that afforded me the opportunity to work on the mixes almost until the last second. And I really wanted to have the mixes to you sooner. But it was like we kept vibing. Yeah, kept vibing. And you know what's funny? I got a funny story, right? When we first started working on music, we had put out like, you know, a couple records, I think off just the first EP. And you had said something like, yo, like we need these records to hit harder. And I started getting harder in the mastering, like bringing the levels up, you know what I mean? And then when we got back into mixing this record, you were like, no, everything's got to come back down. Like this is album mode. Like we need to be, they call it like a flat mix. Like you want the mix to be flat, you know what I mean? And
bro, that was perfect. Those levels was right. Like, and that's why I'm glad, because it was every time it was like, bet. And the fact that it kept getting better, that was a good thing for me. And it wasn't too late, bro. Got it at the perfect time.
But now it's like that I spent so much time working on this one project. And it's known. Like I'm not really working as a producer with a lot of artists like I used to. Like a year ago, this time I was working with 50 artists. Now I'm working with like 5. You know what I mean? And I want to put the time and the care into the records that I'm working on and not be distracted by 25 other people asking me for this or for that when I got these 5 other important projects going on. Is now I go to cut a record in the studio and it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what type of time the artist is gonna. I don't know if they want me to like mix and master the record on the spot, or if they're gonna take a good mix and bring it to a mastering engineer. So shout out to you for honing a professional process. Like I just interviewed an artist last week, and I was like, yo, so like, how does it typically work for you at putting out music? He's like, yo, I go to record to the studio and I put the song out that night. And so what I want you to do is maybe talk about the importance of that professional process and how does somebody at a young age know about analog mastering and the proper way to put a record together.
I was early on, I was definitely blessed to work with some great engineers and stuff like that. My friend Ben Thomas, so he put me, him, Bobby, they were engineers like that got me started, and just stuff like mixes and masters. I early on learned to respect, because this is a good point you touched on, respect the engineer as an art form too, right? Because the engineer is the artist like the rest of us. Like, and if you know music, you know how integral the fucking engineer is to the record. Like, honestly, that's really it. Like, we'd all sound like shit without our engineers, like, period. Like, without our real engineers like y'all who know this shit. So when you take that into account, it's just a matter of respectability on my end. Like, And the very first song I did was the one time I ever did, right? I was hyped, because you get hyped as an artist. Oh my God, I hear my voice, like, I'm dropping this shit now. I did it. I'll never forget. This is 2014, my first song ever. Ben said, "Damn, bro, I wish you would have left me some more time with the mix." I'm like, "Nah, bro, we good. The song running up. I got 1,000 plays in like 2 days, bro. We good." Like, I'm like, "Nah, bro, we good." And later on, you see, like, well, I ended up taking the song down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Good. It was good. It wasn't great.
And then if you give even the level of communication, and artists think they and some artists don't even study it, right? So if you're not you hear from somebody, oh, the mix needs to be better. Did you educate yourself on? Do you know the vernacular? Did you communicate to your engineer what you want out of the mix? Or did you
better? Yeah, exactly.
Could be better? Or did you expect a full mix and master the first day of the fucking you recorded it? Yeah. Like some artists really expect that, and that's not a thing for any hit that I've heard that they record and mix and master in one night and do one mix and ship it off, package it. Like that's naive, that's young, but a lot of young artists get stuck in that, and that's kind of why you find me stagnant with my process. Like that's why Nebula and Prep School is so spread out, because I'm anal about that. Like if I don't have anybody to mix and master it, I'm not gonna drop it. Like,
you want it to be done right.
I want it to be done right. You know what I mean? So you gotta give your engineer the time you know what I mean? An album. You know what I mean? You want. Then you go complain, and your mix is gonna sound the same everywhere because you don't know how to communicate what you really want. You know what I mean? And then this about building a relationship. And like you said, we took our time with these records, man. That was like on both ends, man. We took our time with these, listened to them, showed them to people.
Literally lived with them, lived with the records for a while until it was time. You know, all of it too, right? I have like this curse, right? I feel like in my career I've been cursed. Like I've never really, as a producer, linked up with an actual mixing engineer that could bring like my vision to more life. You know what I mean? And I could think of in 20 years, I could think of like 4 or 5 experiences where records that I'd lived with, crafted, you know what I mean? Like over the course of months, went to a mixing engineer and then was destroyed. You know what I mean? Like the feeling gets taken out. Like, I had this one experience a few years ago. I'll never forget. The A&R for the label heard the mixes and he looked at me and I knew what he was going to say. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry." You know what I mean? Like all he could do was apologize, because after months and months of putting time into crafting a record, to have somebody in a couple hours like destroy it is like the worst feeling in the world. It makes you not even want to do music anymore. But I've recently, in the last year or so, maybe because of quarantine and a lot more engineers are watching other engineers on Twitch, like people are taking time to learn, like you said, actually learn what makes a mix better. But I've been blessed in the last, like, especially 6 months, that I've sent records to mixing engineers and they've come back like, that's exactly what I wanted. You know what I mean? And like last night, I sent you the link. This engineer in Atlanta was mixing live online a record that I produced for this artist. And man, in 2 hours, he made that record so much hotter than I could have in the past 2 weeks that I've been working on it. So it's like I'm learning, even though I've had bad experiences, I'm learning to trust the process and move forward. You know what I mean? Like, and we as creatives, you do have to go through garbage to get to gold. You know what I mean? Not everything is platinum coming out the gate. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
But we do have a couple of records that we've recorded, mixed, and mastered in one session that came out that I love. Like one of them, thinking back, is you know. Like that joint hits harder and cleaner than a lot of other songs that we've done. I don't know what it is. If it was the right beat to fit your voice, you know, if it was like a sonic marriage, you know what I mean? Like, but you know, that like we have records that we did do quickly that sound very professional, but not like this album